Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Do Nothing Project, our weekly experiment, our ongoing weekly experiment in virtual community hangout meditation. We are working hard to create what is arguably a regular live cast with the lowest production values. Although today we graduated to a lapel mic, so hopefully the sound will be a little better. But it's really good to see everybody. I can see on the right all the comments, people checking in from all the spots: Chapel Hill, Sweet, Durham, Sydney, Charlotte, California. I love this. It's it just blows my mind that this is possible. It used to be that you just had to kind of like hope that you could find something in your neighborhood or something in your town that kind of fit your particular style or what you like to do. I remember when I first started meditating in Toronto, I just would go around to all the different sit groups, and which I loved doing. I loved kind of seeing the different styles and different approaches, but I also just found there wasn't really one that fit with my particular perspective or that felt welcoming to my worldview or whatever, because a lot of them there's a kind of particular set of assumptions, and this one has its own assumptions, but what's cool about having this virtual thing is you can kind of find you can connect to a community that you vibe with. So obviously, there's this one, probably there's other ones out there online, but I love doing it, and it just keeps me doing my practice, especially now, this time with the baby and everything's so crazy. I'm really finding I'm missing my community and missing Toronto and being kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And it's just super nice to do these weekly things. So welcome, everybody. If you haven't been here before, the idea of the Do Nothing Project is really, it's just to do a very pared down meditation practice together. Sometimes I might just chat about something or answer a question, but really it's keeping it very minimal. Meditation is sort of the ground of meditation. The basics of meditation is really this essential practice of just being okay existing. But of course, like anything else, there can be all kinds of different flavors and variations, and you can do many different kinds of meditations with different intentions that create different effects. So this one here is all about this live stream is all about really focusing on not doing very much, which sometimes we need. So I thought I'd say a little bit about the inspiration for tonight. What's up, Norway? So I was listening to a podcast. Sarah and I were driving back from somewhere and listening to Dan Harris has his podcast 10% Happier, and he had Joseph Goldstein on, who's sort of one of the sort of senior teachers in North America. He's one of the main people who's thought to have brought Buddhist practice back to the West, back in the 60s. Very senior Vipassana teacher, and a really great guy, just a very down-to-earth, practical dude. But he was talking about him and Dan were talking about one of Joseph's favorite phrases to sort of drop into a meditation. It's really all about equanimity. And the phrase that he likes to drop in is not wanting. And what he spoke about which is something I've noticed so many times, I'm sure you guys have noticed as well when you've meditated, or some of you, there can be this tendency when we're practicing, he says, like this, the mind's tendency to lean into the next thing. So you're breathing in, but you're a little tiny bit anticipating the out breath. Or you're like, okay, I'll watch this slightly uncomfortable sensation in my body, but there's a little bit of an agenda to get it over with. Or even I'll meditate. Yeah, I'm going to meditate, but I'm a little bit either kind of waiting for it to be over, or I'm kind of doing it with this agenda. Like, yeah, I'll meditate, but I'm a little bit wanting it to be more nice, more mellow, more relaxed, which is totally understandable. It's a human thing. And actually meditation can create those state specific effects. There's no question. But there's something very magical that happens when we notice that there's this little bit of a lack of equanimity in the mind, it kind of pulling forward or pushing away, and seeing that and just letting that go. It's like the mind kind of settles back, and we can enter into this momentary space, sometimes for longer, of genuinely not needing anything. Like, and it's hard to describe how profound that is. It's a feeling that actually everything's okay in this moment. And I can really drop into the okayness of it. And that okayness, it has this, I don't know how else to explain it. It has this mysterious sort of depth dimension. There's being okay, and then there's really being okay, and then there's really being okay. And when I say okay, I don't mean like, there's being blissed out and being really blissed out. I mean more like there's being present without needing anything, and then there's really being present without needing anything. And then there's really being present without needing anything. And it's like this level of stillness and presence that starts to just open up and suffuse your experience. And it begins with this kind of commitment to genuinely be okay with what's going on in the moment, to genuinely accept what's going on in the moment. So I thought with this one, so this is pretty much what we could do every week, version of it. But I thought just for fun, maybe I would drop in that when I guide it, that not wanting peace. And it's something you can remember too when you're doing it, just keeping in mind, like, okay, well, yeah, that thing Jeff was saying, which is repeating what Joseph was saying, which is repeating what every teacher says, this thing of like not wanting, just sort of dropping that in, not wanting. So I'll put a couple, 2 or 3 reminders of that in the guidance as we go. Just a reminder, we do a 25-minute sit. I'll finish with some kind of friendliness piece. If you have your own sit, of course, with your own technique you like to do, obviously you're welcome. I mean, it's just great to have you here. So I'll ring the bell to start, and then 1 to finish, and I'll just, lightly guide it, and hope you guys have an awesome meditation. I'll drink some of my tea here. Okay. So 25-minute sit. We'll finish up around 8:35 or so, 8:33. Okay, so I like to start with a few deep breaths, just to, feels like I'm clearing out the system when I do that. So the exhales are really the letting go, the kind of downward motion. They breathe out, I will just soften the forehead and the cheeks and the jaw. The in-breath is the upward motion, so breathing in, stretching out the spine. So it is important to sit with, what's going to keep you. You don't want to fall asleep, so you want to sit in a way that keeps you alert. And the spine up. When the spine's up, it kind of activates the brain in a particular way, actually part of the brain stem. So it helps us stay alert. And that upward motion of the spine, it's sort of like, it's connected to me to the sense of sort of almost dignity in the posture. Like, yeah, I'm going to sit in a way that's open, that's brave enough to face whatever's happening in my experience, that has a kind of self-respect contained in the way you sit. And that's the equanimity piece, okay, can I make a commitment to not get uptight about things for the next 25 minutes? So if things aren't perfect in my situation, like there's sounds coming from next door, or, I don't feel quite as relaxed as I want to be, or who knows what it is. I got lots of thinking tonight. It's just like, okay, well, this is where we're starting. So being totally a realist about that, and just accepting that. And we can find that, in our upward spine. Sort of like, yeah, okay, I can sit with this. And then the out breath is the softening the shoulders. Finding a bit of relaxation in how we're sitting, in our posture. So you could say the most basic meditation is just to sit open with no agenda, just being content to enjoy your own company and the company of this community. Just breathing, listening, being. That's a beautiful practice. Sometimes I just do that. Other times I do that, but I have a light kind of anchor. Like, I need a little bit of structure. And I'll choose to just notice my breath or notice sound. Or some people like to have a mantra. Some people like visual. They visualize, they look at the back of their eyes. Just something to give you a bit of a focus if that bit of structure helps you. So that would be our setup, and go ahead and meditate if you're not already doing it. I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, good. So we're just sitting and enjoying the experience of sitting, and maybe you're lightly working with an object of focus, just paying attention to the feeling of the breath, maybe, or your hands or sounds. Mind wanders, bring it back. And there's sort of, if you are working with an object, there's kind of a way in which we commit to the object, like we decide to find it sort of interesting or let ourselves get into it a little bit. Not with a wanting, but more with just an appreciation. Remembering that label, not wanting. Noticing if you're a little bit ahead of yourself, if you're anticipating the next thing, if your mind's drifting into wanting something more concretely, like for the sit to be over or to be on to the next thing. Just seeing if you notice that, you can kind of let that go. There's this motion almost of like awareness settles back into itself. Genuinely content just to be here. Nowhere else, nowhere to go, no one to be, nothing to prove, just being here as you are. Good. Every once in a while, just dropping in that label, not wanting. And is it true? Are you genuinely not wanting anything, or is there some subtle way in which you're jumping ahead or opposite, pushing against? Just seeing if you can notice that. Come back to whatever you're doing, either the just sitting or the feeling the breath or listening to sound. And so we're sitting, present with the experience of breathing or listening or feeling or just being. And it's this practice of not wanting. We can want all the other hours of our day, all the other minutes, the years. And for this practice in this moment, it's like, okay, and I let all that go and sink down into this present moment, like your awareness drops back and down. And we see there was never any problem in the first place. Okay, good. So for the last few minutes here, usually end with some kind of positivity practice, kindness practice. This one, I thought we just kind of work seamlessly with what we're doing and do a sort of friendliness practice, but towards something in our experience. So instead of working with directing some friendly vibes to a friend or family member, literally see if you can direct some appreciative attention to something in your experience. So if you're working with the breath, seeing if you can maybe even a little bit more than you were already breathe in a way that's like you're just breathing normally, but your attention is appreciating the experience of breathing, the feeling of breathing, or you're appreciating listening, or you're appreciating some object in your experience. If you're just sitting in an open way, then just appreciating that sitting in an open way, but deliberately amp up the gain on the appreciation dial a little bit, just to explore this flavor of practice. And it's interesting to do this just to kind of contrast it with there can be a real bracing neutrality in practice of just seeing how things are without wanting anything to be different, which we're definitely cultivating. And then there can be into this, there's a kind of warmth, a kind of, we're just letting it do its thing, but we appreciate it. There's a kind of kindness in our attention. So just play with this for a bit. It helps to smile. No one can see you. Appreciating but not grasping. It's sort of this fine line. Noticing if you can ride that line, what that's like. When it slips over into too much wanting versus just, this sort of detached, appreciative stance. Okay, good. Nice one. All right. So That was our meditation. I needed it big time. Yeah. What can you say, really? Nothing to say. Maybe just say something about that little bit at the end there. And I'll talk maybe a bit more about this next week, but sometimes there's an understanding of people think about mindfulness as being this thing that's 100% neutral. And that's true that there's a kind of neutrality in the attention that's there. But mindfulness has, it has a kind of ethic baked into it. There's a kind of preference in it actually for looking at cultivating wholesome, healthy states that lead to less suffering. It's definitely there. So I think of that piece at the end, just the act of just welcoming is already doing that in a huge way. But I think that for me, it's like this little cherry on top, this extra training. Why not just stoke a bit of that active friendliness in as well? As long as it's not like, oh, I really want this, so I got to hold on to it like this, but just this kind of bemused appreciation. It just adds a little something to the practice, and it's sort of optional. I like it, but if you kind of got to do it in a way that feels legit for you. So that I'd offer that. Hey, Lauren, yeah, I am grateful for these these Sunday nights as well. Grateful my wife is sitting right across from me, and we both really need this meditation. She's got a Calm sweatshirt on. They sent us some swag because I got a thing on Calm now. If you're on that app too, there's a little how to meditate thing I did. So I haven't answered a question in a while because I've been so blown out with baby situation, but I looked at the list of a few of them that have come in, and there's one most recent one, I think, one of the most recent ones. There's two. Landon asks about jhana practice, so I can say a little bit about that. But before I do that, there was one from I don't even know, it's from Instagram, Giob Nitez, and he basically he or she, I'm not sure who it is, says, great to connect. Baby's adorable. Huge congrats. Thank you. I had a quick question about do nothing. It's been a game changer for me, and I was just curious. This isn't urgent, but I noticed that during each session, my body just slips away as if the body itself is sleeping while the brain is totally aware. I sometimes got this during hypnosis mantra practice, but I always feel it during a do nothing. I never really felt that in focused attention practice. Is this typical of a technique for the body to somehow slip into a deeper rest than in focused attention? Or am I just making that up? Thanks, man. Keep rocking. Thanks, Fred. That was a good question. Okay, so the first thing to say about all this is it is very hard to give some kind of definitive answer for how this kind of technique causes this kind of thing, because everyone is so different. Like there's kind of generalities of how techniques work, but the way it meets your nervous system is going to be unique. So this is why it's so important to be your own teacher. You got to be kind of paying attention, noticing what's working, what's changing. So in the case of this question, that isn't it. We did a meditation once, I think, called Calibrating Attention. It might be worth checking out. For some people, the do nothing practice is exactly the medicine they need. That there's just this really deep rest that they can drop into, that they find when they're doing a more deliberate, focused practice, that there's this kind of energy that's in the practice still. There's a kind of like kind of effortful gathering of resources. And by the way, that can be really, really valuable. There's some people who need that. They're a bit lazy. It's like they're just like that happens with me a lot. Sometimes I'm just like want to just drift and coast, but sometimes I need to actually just put a little bit of backbone into it and be like draw on some effort and to build up my concentration is kind of what I need. So in that sense, a focused attention practice can really be, it's helpful in all kinds of ways. But for other people, it's like too much. It's the opposite. They're always kind of in a bit of a strivey thing where they're always working hard. And the do nothing is sort of like this opportunity to really drop that. And I think for a lot of people, they just super appreciate it. And it really, their body, it's like it gives them a way to relax that they can't ordinarily. And that's what I hear happening with that report. Your mind's perfectly alert. but it's all like your body just drifts into this much deeper state of rest. And actually, that's exactly what they're looking for in a lot of these, now that land and asset, these jhana type practices. So, so I'll say what that means. So basically, you have every kind of technique has a kind of depth dimension. It just goes deeper and deeper. In a mindfulness practice where you're really about cultivating clarity, you can go really deep into it where you're getting super clear about the minute particles of experience, it seems like. Similarly, in a concentration practice, you can go really deep into states of deep settledness and peacefulness where everything is really, really very still and very stable. In a way, concentration meditations are about merging with things. It's about merging with something, getting and kind of creating this fluid continuity between you and the thing, and everything gets very settled. Whereas a mindfulness practice, I kind of merge the two a little bit, and do nothing's kind of its own thing. But a mindfulness practice is more, you're not really merging with it. You're more like getting space around it, seeing it rise and fall and change, and you're interested in the changiness of it. So it's sort of you're deconstructing versus constructing stability. You're deconstructing the whole mind. So jhana practice is a very deep and wonderful kind of practice where people really cultivate the absorption, the merging with stuff, the things getting very stable and very still. And it's considered the premier practice for beginning to actually go on to do advanced mindfulness practice because it creates a lot of stability. So I love those kinds of practices. Early on in my meditation career, I would play with that a lot. I would try to get into those really deep absorption states, and I could do it more easily. The whole question of how deep do you go? I mean, you want to go deep, but everyone has different levels and different criteria of what different things are. I mean, I wasn't very, I didn't go very deep in that way. My wife is a much better absorption meditator than I am. But the idea is that you can go really down to these wonderful spaces, and they're actually very blissful and very content. And it's pretty trippy down there. Like I've had experiences of being so concentrated. It's like your mind is so, they call it, the mind is sort of made malleable or pliable. It's like you can just, whatever you pay attention to, you just become that thing. Like I'd pay attention to like a pocket of rest, and rest would turn, my whole space would fill with rest, right? I'd pay attention to a little feeling of friendliness, and suddenly I'd feel friendliness in my fingers, like my whole experience would fill with it. So it's very powerful. So those are some thoughts about that. Completely ADD style, merging two questions. Yeah. Okay. And that's all I got for you guys tonight. My eyes are like flickering shut with twitches. I'm so tired. I'm very grateful to have you guys, this community, super fun. You're welcome to send me a question if you like, or just show up on the next one. And very much appreciate being able to do this. So I'm going to sign off. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Milan, my posse, for helping make this possible. Thank you, Tristan. And good night, everybody. Thank you, my wife. Thank you, Eden, my baby, upstairs. Did not explode. Fingers crossed. He's been sleeping pretty well lately. Okay.